Hello. If everyone could just make their way back to their seats, we're going to get started on our second to last talk, penultimate talk of the evening. Just make your way back. And if we could just clear a little space to the left-hand side. Amazing, right? This next talk is an absolute banger of a talk. And an absolute banger of a talk needs an absolute banger of an introduction. So without further ado, here's Simon.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, my name's Simon. I'm Simon VC on Twitter. If I fall off this unicycle, you have my permission to tweet the video. I am an engineer here at Monzo, and I have the pleasure of your company for the next 20 minutes. This talk, and then you have Mary, our CTO, who will have a much more sensible talk, I think. I am going to talk to you for 20 minutes in 4 parts. The first part is a 55-second YouTube video that I haven't tested whether or not it actually is going to work or not. And then I'm going to tell you about what I do at Monzo. It's called scouting. And then I'm going to spend about 10 minutes telling you about some of the things that I have completely failed at, which is what scouting is. And then I'm going to get your ideas, and I'm going to tell you why I think they're terrible. Does that sound good? Cool. Okay. So let's. Okay. Firstly, I have a question for you. Who follows me on Twitter? Okay. So the rest of you have a homework job. I'm Simon VC. So can I have the next slide, please? I'm not good with technology. Amazing. Okay. How do I make the video play? Oh, what? Point and play. Oh, okay. Let's wait. Let's know. Do I do this? Is this my job? Someone help him? Yeah. I'm going to do the sound. I've watched this video so many times.
Simon knows. You just
How do I do it? How do I do it? Is it? Oh, is this?
Use it as a cursor.
Okay. Then what?
Keep it out. Right, and then just drag it.
What?
Yeah,
What?
Yeah. Technology.
This is insane. Technology's gone too far.
Press a button to click. Oh no. No, the same button. Yeah, that one.
What button?
Top.
This is the fairey rotodyne. I don't know how to do the video. Basically, this is the fairey rotodyne. This is from 1957. It's about 9 years before man walked on the moon. We had this giant helicopter thing. This man's from Bahrain, and he's impressed by the fairey rotodyne. And you should be impressed by the fairey rotodyne as well. It flies at 200 knots, about 240 miles an hour. It can take off and land anywhere. It doesn't need a runway. It can hold 65 people. And everything about it sounds absolutely fantastic. And like, why is this not a thing? Like, we were able to do this before we put men on the moon, long time before I was born. They only ever built one of them. And it took them 6 years, and then they scrapped it. And it makes me really sad because it's such a beautiful machine. It had rocket-tipped rotor blades. Like, how freaking cool is that? And most people don't even know. This is obviously from the late 50s, so this is very sexist. They put 65 nurses in it to prove that it would work. So that's the fairey rotodyne. So why am I showing you a video about my favorite extinct flying vehicle? It's because, nope, no. Oh, God. See, like, we could do that before we put man in the moon, but we can't make slides advance with a single click. Oh, come on. Seriously. Okay, we're good. Okay, now the slides are automatically advancing. No, I don't know what's going on. Are we good? Okay, this is hilarious. Okay, so who's seen this matrix before? This like high impact, high effort, low impact, low effort, right? So I hate this slide, and it comes up a lot in management consultants, and they're like, you should only work on, like, you should work firstly on the things that are high impact and low effort, and then you should work on the things that are high impact and high effort. And people see this and they go like, I mean, imagine you've decided to build the fairey rotodyne, right? Like, I mean, it seems like it's going to be a pretty hard thing to do, so it's probably going to be high effort, but you also think it's going to be hugely impactful. Like, we won't need runways anymore. We can just land these things like, they actually landed outside the European Parliament in Brussels. And they landed it on a pier at Battersea, next to Battersea Power Station. So I mean, that sounds like it's going to be hugely impactful. But the thing that it ignores, the thing that this matrix ignores, and the problem, which is a sort of sociological problem, is that it ignores risk. It ignores, like, what is the chance of this project failing? Like, what is the chance of us getting this wrong? Like, what is the chance that we've taken this concept, this brilliant idea that we've had, and we put it in the wrong box? And for the engineers that built the fairey rotodyne and spent 6 years of their lives solving super technical problems, they thought the fairey rotodyne was going to be up here. They thought it was going to be a major project with huge effort. But it was actually down here. It was a major project, enormous amounts of effort, and it was completely pointless because they only built one and they sold none. And basically they scrapped it for its aluminium. They didn't even put it in an aerospace museum in Duxford, which makes me really sad. So I don't like this graph. So when we're at Monzo, we want to try as many experiments as possible. We want to try as many different things as possible. And before we commit, before we invest a whole bunch of time in something and, waste our precious time and our precious venture capital rocket fuel, we have to work out where projects really sit. Are they really going to be high impact? And are they really going to be low effort? Or are they going to be impossible? So, and we want to remove as many of these risks as possible. We want to work out if we're actually correctly assessing the impact and the risk of something. And then we also want to get to a point where, like, if we've been working on something and it turns out we were wrong, and we might have put a whole bunch of time into it, but the results are just bad, we want to avoid continuing working on things that aren't going to work. We want to keep the costs of these experiments as low as possible so we can do it as quickly as possible. But the thing I really want to talk about, the thing that's really close to my heart, is how do you build an organization where people feel like it's okay to do things that are destined to fail? Because you want to fail as many times as possible. You want to fail like 90 times to get 10 winners. Because if you do, you get these, you sort of like minority game theory says that you've done something that nobody else has done. If you only work on things that everybody thinks are going to succeed and you succeed, then everyone's done the same thing and you haven't built anything unique. So we need to build an organization where people feel comfortable failing often. Who's heard of the idea of 100 rejections a year? It's a really popular blog post. It's advice they give to writers and to public speakers, especially when they start out, that you should apply to 100 things a year. You should try and aim to get rejected from 100 things a year, because the process is just, it is structured in such a way that if you do that, then you will get 1 or 2 big wins. So this is what the job of a scout at Monzo does. Who knows Team Fortress 2? I love Team Fortress 2, so that's the scout from TF2. The idea of a scout is to lower the cost of failure instead of the chance of failure, right? So prove ideas are bad as quickly as possible. So other banks have the concept of like an innovation engineer, which is somebody who takes like an idea that might come from senior management or from outside the organization and then really throws themselves at that problem and just tries to make it work, and they try and they try to make it work. Whereas what I do and what the other scouts at Monzo do is we try to prove that your idea is terrible as quickly as possible so we can move on to other ideas. And we try to do as many of those ideas as possible. And it turns out if you just invert that model, and if you go right out there and say, my job is to prove that this idea is bad as quickly as possible, then people will actually respect that when you say, no, like I was working on this thing that didn't work out. I worked on 10 things that didn't work out this month, Like next month, I'm going to try and work on 15 things and I hope they all turn out to be terrible ideas. So that's the idea of a scout, is to really embrace bad ideas and prove that they're bad as quickly as possible, because every now and again you'll fail. And then somebody will basically come along and take that idea and turn it into something. And the other thing that a scout needs to be aware of is that some things you can't just prove an idea is bad quickly, because quite often the thing that makes an idea bad is the fact that you have to work with an organization. Like it might be working out whether a partner is a good partner or not. And that can take, months. You might have to actually be persistent to try and prove an idea is bad. But you're going into that process with the assumption that you're trying to, as quickly as possible, prove that they're a bad partner. But it means that you might have to spend a bunch of time on stuff, which means scouts generally work on multiple parallel threads at once. My colleague and friend Anthony, who's sitting at the back row, he works for YLD, and he I stole this slide completely shamelessly from a blog post that I think he's posted, but I'm not sure. If he hasn't, you should look him up on Twitter and read it. It's a really good explanation of this idea. And it's this idea that if you work on things that everybody agrees with, these consensus ideas, and you succeed, then everybody's like, of course, that was always going to work. That was always a good idea. But if you work on things that everybody thinks were a good idea, they're consensus ideas, and you fail, then everyone's like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, no one could have possibly foreseen that that was a really bad idea. And if you work on ideas that are non-consensus ideas, if you work on ideas that people think, is that really a good idea? Should we do that? And you fail, then everyone thinks you're a fool. And if you work on ideas that are non-consensus ideas and you succeed, everyone goes, wow, we all thought that was a terrible idea, but you actually pulled it off. And this is a real anti-pattern that I want to avoid. I don't want to be perceived as either a fool or a hero. I want to take the process of scouting and make it a normal part of trying to work out what we build so we can reduce the risk and work on the right things as often as possible. This is another slide I stole from Anthony. It's the idea that in an organization, if you structure this sort of process, you'll have people like me who are pioneers who go out and try and, actually it says determined to prove value. I actually would rather say determined to prove there is no value in an idea. But yeah, same basic idea. You have these people who are pioneers, and then settlers are the people who come behind them and steal the good ones and build them. And I'm like really fortunate to work with Kieran McHugh, if he's still here somewhere, up the back there. Kieran basically has indulged many of my stupidest ideas, including if this, then that. And so every time we have Monzo time, I basically try and find out where he is and steal him and use him to build things. And then eventually I'll have town planners, people who take these ideas and scale them across the organization and turn them into business lines. When talking about success and failures, like when I was writing this talk, it's actually really hard because when you have proven an idea is bad, you can't always talk about why. Because quite often the answer is, because that company we were working with is not a good company to work with, or they're not capitalized, or the project that you had is literally illegal, which has happened a few times. So, so I can only really talk about the ones where we either succeeded in proving it was a bad idea, but that don't involve working with other companies. So one of the first things that I did was roundups, CoinJar. Who remembers the original version of CoinJar when you actually had to rename a pot to CoinJar? Hugo, is he still here? He hated that idea so much. So I built CoinJar basically without asking anyone's permission or without having any front-end developers to help me. And the only thing I could do, the only way I could make a pot into a CoinJar was by hacking it so that it used the name of the pot. But that meant it was able to really quickly test it without having to spend any time trying to find front-end developers. And IFTTT started as the same type of thing. It started as a Monzo time project and something I really wanted to do, but I was like, this is probably not going to work. It's probably illegal. Let's just try and prove that it's a bad idea. And we actually launched IFTTT at about the same time that GDPR came out. And like when we were going through going as quickly as possible, let's just get this idea out of our head and just prove that it's a bad idea. I remember going to our legal team and saying we wanted to launch this service that will take customer data and send it to an American company. And they were like, right. And what's the American company going to do with it? And I was like, it's going to send it on to all other companies as well. And they were like, right, okay. But we failed at proving it was a bad idea, and it turns out it's an okay idea, so it's live. Another idea that I pitched and was able to actually prove was a bad idea was the idea of Monzo Coin. So it was connecting the Monzo ledger to the Ethereum blockchain so that you could basically take Great British pounds currency and sort of convert it into. Does anyone here know what Ethereum is? Or am I just like, okay, so Ethereum is a cryptocurrency that has this concept of a smart contract, and you can create tokens. And most of those tokens are worthless. Some of them are, technologically, it's a very interesting project, and it might change the world, but it hasn't done yet. But we decided to try and work out how quickly we could prove that it was a terrible idea. So we built it, and we connected our staging environment to the Ethereum blockchain. And it turns out the reason why this is a terrible idea is because there's a European Banking Association regulation that says that banks aren't allowed to create new non-nominative bearer tokens, which is what this would be. And I would never have found that out if I hadn't built it. and showed it to a whole bunch of people and had them explain to me why it was completely illegal. But the fun thing is I now have like a 6 or 7 page PDF document that's 2 years old that completely explains what Facebook's new Libra cryptocurrency is. We were just 2 years too early and regulated. So that's some of the things that I can talk about. So there's some things that I am scouting now that I can talk about. One of the things that I'm working on is, who's ever attached a receipt using the Monzo app to that? So it's not a super popular feature, but it's been there since the beginning. You can actually take any transaction and attach a picture of a receipt, and we don't do anything with those pictures of the receipts. We never have. Using IFTTT will let you upload it automatically to Expensify, for example, but we don't do anything with it. We don't OCR it or anything else. And some of my colleagues, especially Matt Heath, who's a very well-known public speaker, he uses that feature primarily to store pictures of his brunch. When he goes to brunch places, I don't know what he was thinking. I think that's the real reason the feature exists. But one of the things that I'm scouting at the moment is, could we partner with an external company to do optical character recognition on those receipts and extract semantic data? And then what would you do with that data? Like, we could use it to, for example, calculate the VAT from every receipt that you upload, and then we could give you a pot, like a Monzo pot, that automatically stores the correct amount of VAT if you're a small business. So you have the exact amount of VAT you have to pay to the government at all times stored in a pot, which would be pretty cool. So I'm trying to work out if that's going to work. I'm doing some scouting to work out whether or not we could allow you to, as a business customer, take payments using nothing but your mobile phone. Imagine taking your mobile phone out and holding, like if you run a small business, you could take like somebody's card and actually do a contactless payment just by holding their card up to the back of your phone, and trying to work out whether or not that is possible now or will ever be possible in the future. Another thing that I've been scouting for a while is the ability to, it's like, what would it look like if we were able to connect merchants back to their customers in like a really nice way? So in this example on the right-hand side here, you can see an EasyJet transaction that looks like a normal Monzo transaction, except EasyJet have also sent us information about the check-in and your booking number, as well as a button that lets you manage your booking directly, and another button that lets you buy travel insurance from either Monzo or from EasyJet. And this is a really interesting idea that we're pursuing. And there are, like, the interesting thing about this, and one of the things that I've worked out from scouting, is that a lot of these like services that might connect your bank account to other merchants will require you to opt in and share your data outside of Monzo. And I don't think that's the future. I think everybody's super conscious and aware of their privacy and the fact that their data is being spread very widely, and we don't want to like encourage that. So what I'm trying to work out, what I'm trying to scout at the moment is, could we build a system that inverts that, so that instead of your data ever being shared outside Monzo, we provide an API for merchants to prove that they are the merchant side of the transaction, and then we take what they send us and we just show it to you. So customer data never leaves Monzo, but you still get these beautiful experiences that are contextual and super nice. So we'll see if that one ever works out. I hope it does. The receipts one I already talked about. Another one that I'm really excited about is, this isn't a real thing, by the way. If anyone's a journalist here, this doesn't exist. You haven't seen this. It's not a real thing. But in Asia, I was in the Philippines recently, and a lot of people use QR codes and WeChat and Alipay to pay for things, right? And when you go to pay for something, you just pull out your phone and you scan the QR code, and then it basically brings up the merchant, and that's how you pay for things. And I've been trying to work out why no business plan that's ever required QR codes has ever worked in the UK. And what would it look like if we did a very similar thing to WeChat and Alipay, but instead of using QR codes, we'd use Bluetooth Low Energy. So you pull your phone out and it basically just pops up and shows the merchants that are nearby, and the bill of things that you can buy from them, and it's nice and easy to pay for things. Does anybody here go to Broadway Market? Yeah, so Broadway, yeah, every Monzo person puts their hand up. Broadway Market's great, but a lot of merchants don't take cash. And there's one ATM, and there's like a 150-meter long queue, and it makes me sick, the fact that people could just pay directly, like Monzo peer-to-peer or Monzo peer-to-business. So I want to fix that just so I don't have to go to the ATM ever again. So now I have 5 more minutes before you have Mary. So I want you to tell me your ideas and try and keep it like 15 seconds, 1 or 2 sentences, and I will try and tell you how I would go about scouting that. And if I can't think of a reason why that's a terrible idea straight off the bat, then I will go and scout it for you. So put your hands up if you have a question, if you have an idea. You, sir. Yeah, so that's a great idea. So the idea is, so you land on a Greek island and you want to pull up your Monzo and see where people have spent. So we've actually started building that. We've had a channel going for about 2 years now called Maps and Stars at Monzo. And I told you about Matt Heath, how he uses the photo upload thing mostly to take pictures of brunch. So the idea was we would actually let you star brunch places that you like, and then we would, our retirement plan would just be to produce a guidebook of places so we'd never have to find a brunch place again. But if you looked on our blog, I think just yesterday or the day before, our data science team has actually done exactly that. They've basically published a digital map using some crazy smart algorithm that ranks places by how cool they are or something, I don't know. But there is actually a map there now. There is actually in the Android app now, not a lot of people have noticed it, but if you go into the Android app, you can actually click on the map on the background. It's a bit of an Easter egg, it's a bit hidden, and it will actually show you your places. And I think that's eventually going to get extended to also include places that other Monzo customers like, but like inversely penalized if it's a popular place. So it'll find you those local gems. So yeah, it's going to happen. Great idea. I can't prove that one's bad. Any more? I got time for like 2 more ideas and we're done. You, sir.
Yes, sir.
A financial health score. We have a financial health squad. So I guess a financial health score is a bit like, if I'm guessing, it's something like your credit score. Damn, I really like it. Can we
Can you
build that?
repeat that for the stream?
Oh, sorry, a financial health score, something that takes into account more of your financial well-beingness than just your credit score. Yeah, that's a great idea. We should do that because, I mean, sorry, I'm completely ruining the whole principle of my talk. It sounds like a great idea, and I will try and scout that one for you and let you know. Send me a tweet afterwards, and I'll give you a full credit for the idea if we end up building it. Time for one more, and then we're done. Yes, sir.
Nominative, how to integrate something into Monzo that was thought to be non-nominative bearer token, but coming from a Libra consortium.
Okay, so should we connect to Facebook's Libra? So this actually came up. At our revenue incubator away day on Thursday or Friday. I remember Friday, I think. It's an interesting question. I will actually be scouting that for sure. I'm not saying that we're going to do it. I'm saying that there's a 99% chance that we're not going to do it. I have some thoughts about why it's an interesting idea. It's because they've created a currency which isn't native anywhere. So everyone will have to pay FX to buy the currency and then FX at the edges. And nobody loves money transmission companies, especially the big ones. I think there should be something better in the world. But as a bank, we take anti-money laundering and know your customer requirements really, really seriously. And when you've spent any time working inside Monzo and seen our amazing financial crime team, you realize how important it is to have money that's correctly regulated, because without that, society ends up with a real human trafficking and modern slavery problem, terrorist financing and things like that. So I think those of us who work at Monzo have become a lot more aware of why those things are very, very important. So it'll be interesting to see how companies that connect to Libra solve that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting problem. I would definitely try. So that's it. That's all the time I have time for. Thank you very much. And I'll hand over to Mary.
Not right the unit size.